People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, man. Come on.
You always just that active when that defenders, I think, it's like.
Am I live? Of course I'm live. People deluded, I'm back again. With it being Arsenal's transfer business and with it being the transfer window opening, we've been primarily linked with Modric. So I had to get a special guest, someone who knows a lot about Modric. Andrew, how are you doing? Good morning to you, fella. You okay?
Yeah, morning. Very well. We've been chatting a bit on Twitter over the past, 6 weeks or so. Finally, ready to chat. Hopefully, it means that something more, I guess, solid is going to be happening over the next few days or weeks.
Yeah, man. And obviously, I just want to ask you a bit of a question, a bit relevant but irrelevant. It's just hit on me. Obviously, you've got an English accent. You're an expert on Ukrainian football. You know, what's the link there? Are you of a Ukrainian background? Did it just happen? Like, where did that link come from?
No, yeah. So I've got a Ukrainian background, born and raised in. I was actually born in Wembley, but now live outside on the outskirts of London. But yeah, Ukrainian background, been sort of reporting, following Ukrainian football pretty religiously my whole life anyway. And I thought, bloody hell, not many people outside of Ukraine in terms of English speaking that can maybe share insight into what's going on over there from a footballing perspective. So I started this Zorya London, my page on Twitter and website, and writing articles and doing pods like this and stuff like that about 4 years ago. And here we are.
Who's your favorite Ukrainian footballer? I think I could guess, but I just need to hear you say it. But I think there can only really be one option, really. Who's your favorite player?
I know everyone will say Zinchenko, but for me, just because I don't know, I've just been a bit closer to him in like recent years when I've been reporting on Ukrainian national team and all this kind of stuff. Andriy Yarmolenko.
Oh, that's a good shout, man. I wouldn't have expected that. I thought you said Shevchenko. I thought maybe Zinchenko, with him being a current Arsenal player, would get some love there, but no worries, man. What do you make of Zinchenko joining Arsenal as well, man? Just obviously being of a Ukrainian descent and seeing him. What does obviously I live in England. I obviously know Zinchenko's a fantastic player, been at City. Does it have an impact on stuff? Because as seeing Zinchenko, he seems like one of the biggest star names in Ukrainian football. Obviously, you saw the pictures resurfacing with Arsenal. What was the language on the ground in relation to him moving to Arsenal? And prior to his move to Arsenal, was it a thing where obviously for all his talent, he was in a stacked Manchester City side? Was there always a feeling within the country that he might need to go somewhere else to showcase his talents to a better standard, sort of thing?
Absolutely. I think that was genuinely the first reaction. Everyone was like, hey, he's heading to Arsenal. Yeah, there's Tierney in the squad, but on the whole, it seems like for the money that Arsenal are paying for him, they want to see him as a starter. Arteta knew him. So everyone, I think, was quite confident that he'd be able to settle into this side and probably showcase his talents a bit better than he did at Man City. Even though he did, it just wasn't very consistent in terms of he wasn't there all the time. He wasn't starting. So I think it was a very good move from everyone concerned. And obviously 6 months later, everyone's very, very happy with the results.
What a fantastic signing he's been for Arsenal. Do you think he'll stay at left back? Because I think when he signed for Arsenal, Arteta said he's a 10. Obviously, playing for Manchester City, you kind of just have to get him where you can. He's found the role at left back and he's doing it quite well. I just think he basically plays like a centre mid for Arsenal anyways, but surely he's got to be considered an 8 at some point in his career at Arsenal, man, because he's got a lot of ingredients to his game. I mean, I'm a big fan of Kieran Tierney, but Zinchenko's a centre mid playing as a left back, and it's like once you get a taste for that, it's very difficult to go back. Really, he's a breath of fresh air. Really,
I could see it. I guess we're probably going to have to wait and see. Obviously, Shaka's if he ends up moving on somewhere in the next couple of years. Same with Thomas Partey. I could see him maybe replacing one of them in the middle there, and then being one of those channels. Probably needs a more defensive player alongside him just to help out, but we saw from that sort of number 8 position that you want to see him in the future, like that pass that he put into was it Gabrielli for the first goal against Brighton the other day, against Martinelli, and then he prayed it into Saka. So there's plenty of stuff that is going to be I think he's got all the skill set to do that in the future, and he does it for Ukraine regularly anyway. It's just once Arteta actually, I think, has his optimal squad, then he will do that. But for the time being, I think there's no issue with him playing left back and playing in that sort of inverted midfielder role when he slots in. Once Arsenal go on the attack.
I mean, yeah, man, from one Ukrainian to another, let's get into the business end of this, man. Mudryk, like, I've got a series of questions I'm going to ask you in front of me. When did you first come to learn about Mudryk and his talents? Because, I mean, he's 21 years of age, and for me, it's like in the last 12 months, maybe 18, that everybody's an expert, everybody knows about him and things. But, yeah, when did you first come to learn about him?
Yeah, so as you say, he has only blown up maybe the past year, 18 months. However, he's been on the radar of, those people on Football Manager that love Wonder Kid and stuff like that. For I guess maybe past 4, maybe touching 5 years, based on the fact that when he was playing youth football for Shakhtar, he was playing in the UEFA Youth League. He was doing sort of like viral videos where he was doing that Perez penalty where he passes it and then has another teammate tap it in, and similar sort of like skill moves and stuff in games, which obviously gave him the tagline, the Ukrainian Neymar, which everyone's sort of using colloquially, even though he hates it himself. I think he said he wants to be called the Ukrainian Mudryk, but hey ho, that's what he gets as a nickname, and I think he's sort of trying to live up to that as best as he can in terms of his own career. And then since he was playing in those youth games, he was playing in obviously the UEFA Youth League, playing quite well there, but he was quite a scrawny guy, quite small, not very well built. He was falling over a lot, getting when he was clattering into challenges. He was, maybe not diving, but you probably could say that he was falling over a bit too easily. But luckily, over the past, 18 months, especially the past maybe say 9 months, he's bulked up massively. So a positive thing. He had a few loan moves early on in his career, and nothing, I guess, too notable for me to mention there, just because he didn't really do much in either of them. One of the teams was like literally relegation fodder at the bottom of the league. They didn't really do much. And the second one, he made a few appearances, but nothing in terms of goal contributions that was anything serious. Then under Roberto De Zerbi, who was the Shakhtar manager in the 21-22 season, he was given a chance finally as more of a regular starter, especially as a few of his, I guess, main competition at Shakhtar left, like Tyson, who was the left winger there. Yeah. Also, Manor Solomon played out there sometimes, and all of this sort of worked in his favour that he had the opportunity to show himself, and he has done for those past 18 months.
You mentioned it there with the loans, and like as someone that obviously is not privy to knowing everything about Modric, when you look at his like just looking and updating yourself online, it seemed I'm very wary of saying players have bad attitudes and things like that, but this does come across like he potentially did have that. So I'd say, do you have any concerns about that, or do you think there's been a shift? Because it seems like when you just read things online, Roberto De Zerbi obviously made the penny drop, potentially going out on loan to clubs that are not as glamorous as Shakhtar the next. You kind of see what you could lose being in that sort of situation. And I only asked that really because Arteta is a very very strict guy for all of that stuff. We've seen Ozil, Guendouzi, and Aubameyang kind of fall by the wayside, and there's got to be some level of Arsenal being convinced with his attitude or a new shift in such to be going for him. But is that anything to read into for you?
I guess you could say it might have been a concern in the past, because under the manager before De Zerbi, Luis Castro, basically he said the reason that Mudryk doesn't play as often, or he had an interview where he mentioned that essentially Mudryk should focus a bit less on 4-3-3 skill videos and TikToks kind of stuff, which Mudryk loved to do back then, and sort of focus more on his football. However, I guess it must have been like just a clash between both of them, where one guy didn't have the, I guess, people management skills to help out the other, which I think Castro probably didn't have compared to the likes of De Zerbi and currently Jovicevic, who's the current Shakhtar manager. And then on top of that, you look at sort of the man manager that Arteta is, and I think that would obviously continue in terms of a positive way, because since De Zerbi came in, he sort of showed the faith. There was an interview recently where Modric mentioned that he spoke to De Zerbi in some of the first few weeks when they were on their summer training camp before the season started, when he arrived. And De Zerbi was like, "Hey, listen, what do you want to achieve in your career? What's your end goal?" And Modric was like, "I want to win the Ballon d'Or." And some managers be like, "Oh, get lost," or something like that. But he showed the faith. He said, "Listen, fair play. I understand that. I think you're capable of doing that. So I'll try and do everything I can to help you achieve that." And I mean, under him, I guess essentially all Modric needs is someone who's got a bit of faith in him.
Yeah.
And I think his attitude has changed a lot in terms of to become a more professional athlete. I think he fully understands his career. And like you say, maybe those loan moves have had an impact on him in terms of, listen, if you aren't going to start performing or buck up, then this is what could be the reality in your future. And I think now that he's sort of tasted everything that he has had with Shakhtar, especially in the past 6 months, even in the Champions League, that I think he's raring to go sort of onto the next chapter.
I mean, and that sets me up to a question. I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit, but I mean, you kind of set it up perfectly. Obviously, Mudryk can't be held responsible for Ukrainian Neymar, for whatever the Shakhtar directors say about him. But there isn't, on it for me, it's like he's 21, he's played 44 times. He's a bit of a raw diamond. There's clearly some things he's going to have to work on, but there's clearly some potential there. Do you think that there's a certain level of time people have to give him, because he would be joining mid-season? Do you feel he'd necessarily start right away for Arsenal as well?
So I've had a few other chats with, I don't know, some Arsenal fans, some other journalists and everything else. And I think the main thing is that he won't probably get into the team straight away, in my opinion. Yeah, you guys, if you end up signing him, are going to be spending big money on him. That's 100. There's no doubt about that. But to sort of completely kick Martinelli out of the team, I think that's another question altogether, because Martinelli is obviously playing really well. I know there's been the talk of trying to shift Martinelli into the middle, especially with Jesus away. But I mean, Nketiah is playing quite well, so why would Arteta want to change any of that for the time being? What I think actually is this current 6-month period, if he was to sign in January, is sort of perfect for Mudryk in terms of adapting to the league. I think he has got the physical attributes to play in it pretty well. Usually, like, someone has to adapt to the pace of the league and everything like that. But if you look how fast the player is, I don't think he's actually going to have any real issues with that. And he's really like fit in terms of sort of stamina and all that stuff anyway, because he's regularly got his own personal trainer, where he's like trying to break speed records. Like, he's trying to get 40. He got the record in the Champions League this group stage for the fastest sprint, which was like 36.6 kilometers an hour, tied with Dembele. But apparently, according to him and his personal trainer, they're trying to work on a 40-kilometer sprint an hour. So, and that's like never been done before. Who knows if that's even possible? But that's sort of the goals that they're working towards. So obviously very ambitious, but it just shows, I guess, some of the attributes that Modric has compared to other people. Like, I've seen him play on numerous occasions this year, and he probably is one of the fastest players I've ever seen on a pitch. Like, live as well, it's like, it's unbelievable when he's outpacing, coming through on the counter or anything else, and even on the ball, with how quick I guess his ball control is, and sort of how close he is to the ground as well. He's really fast at moving it from like one foot to another and beating players. So it just shows that he's got slightly more to his game than maybe, I guess, all these counter-attacking compilations that everyone's been seeing on Twitter recently and elsewhere probably give value to.
So what sort of formation does Shakhtar play? Obviously, football is adaptable, it's fluid. No two clubs play the same way. But what sort of system, playing style, formation does Mudryk currently play at Shakhtar, and how will it differ from Arsenal? Because, like you said, I agree with you in my limited knowledge. I think from what I see with the player, he's got a willingness to learn. He's adaptable. He's got a lot of raw materials that could be crafted. But like, are they playing a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1? Is he more inverted? Does he hug the touchline? Like, what is he currently doing?
I would actually a 4-2-3-1. I mean, it's not too dissimilar formation-wise from what Arsenal play. Two fullbacks, of course, two sort of wingers, wide men, You've got a player like Odegaard in the middle there, just behind the centre forward. Sudakov, who he's got quite a good telepathic relationship with, in terms of Sudakov likes playing in sort of those through balls and balls along the ground or over the top that Modric loves to run onto. Kind of thing that we saw on the weekend when Odegaard played in Martinelli for the fourth. It's that kind of relationship that they've got. And then there's two players in behind, Bondarenko and Stepanenko, a bit more like Xhaka Party, who, you know, end up breaking down play and then trying to start off attacks. So essentially, I think there won't be too much difference. The only difference will be just the quality of opposition.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's played quite well in the Champions League, but I'd say that that's in a slightly different setup to how Arsenal play. Obviously, you play a bit more on the front foot, especially in the Premier League, because they're playing, I guess they're one of the better sides in the league, and that's why they can do that against. Whereas Shakhtar, especially in the Champions League, have been playing much counter-attacking football. Although I saw a stat somewhere yesterday that apparently Arsenal have had more counter-attacks than Shakhtar this year. So that
I believe that. I fully believe that, bro.
So there you go. Because in the actual Ukrainian Premier League, it's slightly different. Whereas obviously, because Shakhtar are one of the better teams, they're playing against, like, I don't know, 10 man behind the ball for most of the game, and they're playing against those low blocks that everyone wants to see Mudryk playing against.
Do you have any concerns about that? Sorry to cut you, because everyone's like, oh, he's a counter-attack player, can't play low blocks. He seems like an intelligent player to me, so I don't see why you couldn't, especially as, like you said, with Arsenal, where there's several danger men, like, respectfully to Shakhtar, you know,
exactly.
There's a whole host of players.
Yeah.
So do you have any concerns about that?
No, I personally don't, because I think the fact that Shakhtar, maybe sometimes he has got a few issues where he's maybe marked out the game or they can't get the ball to him. And because he is the main attacking threat in the side, sadly, their centre forwards aren't that good. They're not that effective. And a lot of the time, even when he's got the ball and he wants to try and, like, put it into the box or play along the ground, once he's in the box, there's, like, no one to receive it.
He's too fast.
Whereas in terms of, if he moves to Arsenal, for example, or any other sort of top quality team where they've got the quality spread across the pitch, you know, Saka on the other wing, you've got Nketiah running in everywhere, Odegaard on the edge of the box. That helps. I think that will just take off that burden away from him a bit more, and it will just allow him to be in the game, be a bit more flexible in the game, sort of, because he likes to come in slightly towards the middle a bit more. So as well, and then linking up play with Zinchenko too, I think that will be quite a cool dynamic to see, and it will obviously benefit the Ukraine national team as well, going down in the future.
I'm with you on that, man. I mean, that whets my appetite, and we need to get the man signed now. I mean, I hear a lot about Mudryk in the sense of, obviously, if you look at him statistically, he's played off that left-hand side, but there's been rumors he could be molded into a striker. He can play as a 10, kind of in the Odegaard role. I've even seen some blogs say he could be an 8. So what do you make of that? Because there is still a bit of refinement to do with him. He's 21 years of age. He's still discovering himself. He's only got 44 senior appearances for Shakhtar. So he's not the finished article. Where would you think he ends up? Or do you think he's a player that could play all of them? Do you think he ends up as a centre mid? Because he seems a lot more fluid than people are giving him credit for. It doesn't seem like just a winger. He seems like an inverted guy that can kind of be a playmaker and has a big strength for playmaking, probably reflected in the assists he's got, to be fair.
No, I could definitely see him maybe playing in the 10 role, but right now, just from everything I can see, at least for the next few years, I think he's going to be most effective on the wing, just with the pace that he's got. I know that it might not be needed to be exploited all the time, but he is really that fast. But I think it'd be slightly wasted in him building up play or something like that, especially when, for example, Arsenal have got the players that are more than capable of doing that for the time being. And especially, I mean, we've seen Jesus, he's been playing quite well, but maybe he's not the goal scoring threat that everyone expects. And if maybe Arteta wants someone who's a bit more consistent in front of goal, putting Martinelli up there, like if he goes for that experiment eventually, maybe not this season just because Arsenal's so sort of determined to win the league, then maybe we might see Modric, solidifying that left wing position if he ends up signing and playing there for at least a number of seasons. In the future, possibly. I don't think he'll ever be an 8. He's got a great range of passing. Like his passing is quality, but it would just seem, for me personally, a bit of a waste playing him there because of how fast he is, because of his defensive qualities aren't as good as, for example, a Xhaka, a Zinchenko, or even Partey. So it would just be a bit weird to see him anywhere a bit more centrally, especially when he'd have to probably have a bit more capabilities. Although obviously because of his pace, he's probably relatively stable at recoveries, and just he'd need a lot of work defensively. And I think that's another positive of him moving now, is that if he does get the move, especially this window,
Fingers crossed.
he's got a lot of window of opportunity for development. And under Arteta, who's been very, who's seen as, like, I guess, alongside Pep, as someone who can nurture talent and sort of get the best out of them, I don't see sort of a place better for him than Arsenal right now, where I think he would definitely get game time fairly regularly, obviously either as a sub coming on in the final 30 minutes or sort of in the rotation. Then, I think the only other best option at the moment, from my perspective, from terms of like stability, where you don't want the manager to be sacked like in the next 6 months or something like that, it would probably be Man City. But then it would probably be a bit more of a struggle for him to get into the team. Obviously, Grealish isn't performing that well either. But I just feel that Arsenal is probably the best place for him right now, just with everything that's going on and the whole sort of environment that is set up there.
You kind of touched on it, but what would you say is his weaknesses then?
So right now, I think probably maybe final pass end product. He's been working a lot, apparently, extra training sessions, like staying behind and all that on his finishing, and he looks a lot better at that. But I think he still needs to work on it, because what he does sometimes is he likes to try and beat about 3 or 4 players, and then he tries to pass it somewhere and it just ends up going nowhere. So like his passing accuracy, I think, is relatively low compared to some of maybe his how would you call it, his main competitors in the Premier League, for example. So like Grealish, Antony, Martinelli, that kind of thing. So he definitely needs to work on that. Maybe just that decision making, refine it a bit more. Similarly, I think he can probably bulk up even a bit more. He's working a lot in the gym, trying to be a bit more of a solid player. But the more physical you are in the Premier League, just the better talent that you end up being. And on top of that, I think we'll see how he reacts to, obviously, if he does make the move, if he's not in the team every single week, which obviously every player wants to do that. But I think it'll just be the first sort of major test since he's blown up, for example, and everyone's been on him.
You're not a big fish in a
sort
small
of a hype
pond
player,
anymore, respectfully.
Yeah, exactly. How will he adapt to that? But I'm confident that he will. It'll probably just take a bit of time. And I think, just like I said, if he does make the move this window, it will probably be very helpful and beneficial to everyone, because you will get that sort of bedding in period for the time being. And that will just help him obviously crack on just from next summer, when, get the pre-season out of the way, and then can carry on, hopefully, in the Champions League and in the league.
I mean, you said it all there, to be fair. So what do you, if I was to ask you, like, in relation to Modric, what do you make of, like, not only the move, but it's like, what do you make of his social media antics? What do you make of Shakhtar the next, I mean, I don't blame them for waxing lyrical. That, Premier League club wants your money, wants your player, play top money, pay through the nose. What have you made of, like, he's £100 million player, if Grealish was this and Antony was that, he's the Ukrainian Neymar, he's only behind Neymar, Vinicius and Mbappe. What do you make of that high praise from their CEOs and whatnot?
Yeah, obviously it's probably blowing up their own trumpet kind of thing, but in reality, I think he probably has got the potential to be as good as the best wingers in Europe when it comes to it. If he's got those goals of being like the Ballon d'Or winner and stuff, he's obviously going to have to win the trophies alongside it.
100%.
And that obviously will come down to, I guess, both the environment that he's in himself, and obviously how he ends up adapting to everything going on. But personally, I think he is quite ready. He's got a good grasp of English. Yeah, his social media, like you say, he likes random things, but I think
Does a lot, man.
that's been slightly blown out of proportion, just on the basis of how, I guess, Premier League fan bases are like. They just love picking up on things. Whereas I guess in Ukraine, it's like less of a big deal. People just like anything, and it's like, oh wow, you liked it, whatever. Like it's going to be less of something that's going to be picked up on. Although I understand that the more things that he likes about Arsenal, the more it seems that he is sort of so intent on making this move. And I think Shakhtar are very happy for him to go, just as long as they receive the money. And that's why I think currently, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think it's probably going to be at least a week or so minimum if this deal is going to be resumed, for like more negotiations and all that kind of thing. Because I think one thing that people are saying, oh, Shakhtar being greedy and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there's a few factors to blame for all of that. So we've got current situation where obviously Grealish, Antony, who far from set the league alight since they made their moves in terms
100%.
of the new clubs. So it's like if they're playing that bad and they cost that much, then Mudryk should be a lot better, although he's still unproven, like you say. Albeit the Champions League, I think, has helped quite a lot, especially this campaign. On top of that, also you've got to take into account that Shakhtar is currently in quite a bad situation because of the war in Ukraine with Russia. Essentially, what's happened over, I guess, the past 10, 11 months is that they lost all their foreigners, more or less for free. So basically, there's a FIFA ruling which allowed all foreigners to suspend their contracts with their current clubs and move on loan for free to any other club that they want. And the problem with that is that whilst your contract is suspended at Shakhtar, it's still winding down. So, for example, this summer coming up in 2023, there's like the likes of Tete, who's currently at Lyon, Manuel Solomon. I think both of their contracts will be in their final 6 months in the summer. And it means that they can literally sign on and find a new club for free in the summer. Or they'll probably just remain at their current club or whatever. So that's actually quite a big problem because Shakhtar have lost a minimum 40 million euros in transfer fees that they could have got. And that's why I think a lot of this current hoping to sort of accommodate as much money or earn as much money as possible from this Mudryk move is because they want to make up for all the lost earnings that they've made from their foreign players. And it's not just those two players I mentioned. There's a few others that have gone on loan that they probably could have made some money out of, and they'd happily sell them. But because of this ruling, they can't. Even for cut price. Like, for example, in the summer, Manuel Solomon was moving to Fulham, right? And then that previous ruling or whatever expired. And before FIFA renewed it, there was a month period or something. And Shakhtar had agreed a deal for 7 million for Manuel Solomon, 7 million, next to nothing in grand scheme of things. When the previous season, Atalanta wanted him for 15 million, and there was 20 million euro bids coming in and all that. They were about to sell him, and then that new FIFA ruling sort of was renewed, and Fulham just stopped talking to him. And they were like, "Now we don't want to do anything." And then they signed him on loan for free, which you can't blame Fulham for it. It's just that why would you pay if you don't have to?
Yeah, it's business,
sort of thing. So yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, that's the same thing for Shakhtar right now. They are currently in a legal battle with FIFA. They've taken them to court. They want 40 million damages for that. Yeah. But obviously, when you're taking FIFA to court, it's probably it seems difficult that you might win something out of that. And on top of that, they want to try and make the most money from the talents that they've got. And obviously, Modric is the highest rated of them all. So that's what it's going to be. So I don't really blame them for it, but it might obviously have possible detrimental impact on whether this move is going to occur or not. But we will see. I'm hoping that they probably will settle for a fee slightly lower than the 100 million that everyone's been quoting. Just as long as we've all seen from all the different media outlets, that it's just a big enough fee up front, because I think it's just essentially for survival and just to continue playing football for at least the next few years.
Because, I mean, when you read everything in relation to Shakhtar and this Mudryk thing, all the reports say Shakhtar are notoriously difficult to deal with and they're difficult businessmen. And Cody Gakpo went from PSV to Liverpool for an affordable fee. He's been at the World Cup. And I'm in two worlds about that. I think, on one hand, Shakhtar are in their rights. If you've got someone who's the Ukrainian name or and stuff, you've got an asset, get your money, especially when you've got a top five league in Arsenal or the Premier League wanting to buy such. So it makes sense. So, but then you look at Shakhtar, where it's been Fred, Fernandinho, and so on and so forth. They've shown that they will sell. They'll get players and sell. So when you put it all into perspective as such, it makes sense. Where do you think we're at with the Mudryk deal? Because you kind of touched on it. It seems a bit like they want more guaranteed monies or more upfront fees and things like that. We've heard Chelsea hijacking this and the others. And I'd also like to ask you as well, why didn't he move in the summer? Because, you know, Arsenal were linked with a whole host of wingers and it seemed like we could get him in the summer. I think he primarily looked like he was going to go to Everton or Brentford. And since then, obviously, his price, because of his performances, has skyrocketed a couple of months prior.
I think the main thing was probably ambition. I think he, for whatever reason, there was like quotes. I don't know whether they're real or not, but they did apparently come out of Mudryk saying that he did have these offers from Brentford, for example, but he didn't want to go there because they weren't playing in the Champions League. They weren't going to be challenging for any titles or anything like that. And that was something that he was sort of his main priority if he was going to make the move. Then he was linked with Bayer Leverkusen as well, and that sort of
and Nice, if I can remember rightly.
Yeah, but essentially, I think that the thing that happened was that Shakhtar were like, listen, we're not letting you go for 30 million because we know that we can make a lot more out of you. Obviously, you've got the Champions League coming up. You can show yourself and, you know, put yourself on a world stage, and then we can try and make more money out of for us, and also hopefully get a better move for you. Because I think Arsenal came in late in the summer, but they didn't put a bid in or anything. It was literally just interest. So in that perspective, I think it probably worked out for the better, maybe for everyone, because Arsenal wouldn't have probably put a bid in anyway. Currently what's going on, obviously there's progression and negotiations going on, and I guess most clubs have been able to sort of validate the sort of hype around Modric just from his performances in the Champions League and how well, the fact that he can play on that. But yeah, he didn't go to the World Cup, but at least he's been playing consistently in the Champions League, and hopefully can transfer those qualities and performances into maybe the Premier League or anywhere else.
What do you make of... Oh, go on.
No, yeah, go, Carl.
No, I was going to say, what do you make, to kind of go back to social media, not necessarily him liking things or posting things. It kind of is a bit of that. What do you make of the interviews? Because it felt like as soon as the window shut, whether it was Ben Jacobs, you know, Mrs. Zinchenko and Mr. Zinchenko, anyone who would listen, he would have an interview, and he kind of came out and not criticize Shakhtar for his price tag, but kind of said what we're all saying, you know, someone in the Ukrainian league, 100 million, you're moving a bit crazy, really. What do you make of that? And do you think if this drags on, I know he probably wants to be respectful to a team in his homeland and a team that's given him a lot, but could you see him, like footballers do, kind of forcing the issue a bit, kind of going on the offensive? I don't want to say striking and all of these sort of things, but potentially that sort of thing to get the move done, because it seems like personal terms are not a problem. There's a degree of interest. He's probably indirectly spoken to Arteta. It's just about dotting I's and crossing T's with his club, and ultimately the move can take shape.
Probably not. I'm not going to lie. I don't think there will be an issue. The thing is, I think there's just a general consensus that if he doesn't move in this window, he will more or less 100% move in the summer. It's just either or. That's what we essentially, obviously there's like the stages of talks and negotiations at Arsenal currently, and it seems more favourable that he's going to do it this window. But if he didn't, of course, I think he probably will be gutted, because obviously there's the degree that he can move to Arsenal and help them win the league sort of in his first 6 months there. So obviously, of course, he'd be gutted if he didn't.
Wouldn't you want it, innit? Yeah.
However, I do see sort of I wouldn't be surprised personally if he didn't make the move until the summer. Like it would just be like, yeah, fair enough, because we've seen it a lot before with Ukrainian clubs where they don't like to release players, especially in the winter, and that kind of stuff. Albeit, it just seems like the current situation where there are talks going on, and people have been saying like personal terms have been agreed and all that kind of thing. I don't think it's at that stage yet, because I think that'll probably be after the actual fees agreed for it to be all official and all that lot. But yeah, I would be not surprised by either of them. And I think just on the basis of if Mudryk were to strike, I think that would just have a negative impact on himself.
Yeah.
In terms of people be like, hey, this guy's attitude's maybe not all there. And I think he's very much honed in on that recently, where he's been showing that he's very, committed to his career, to everything that's going
Seems
on.
quite
Yeah,
spiritual with the religion and
yeah,
all of that stuff
yeah,
as well.
he's very spiritual with God and like reading the Bible and all that kind of stuff. And he loves a tattoo and all, loves
He does.
motivational tattoos as well. So I think that if it wasn't to work out, like Arsenal probably be back in for him probably in the summer, and maybe you never know, because it'll probably be a bit more of a relaxed situation where Shakhtar can probably bring someone in a bit better, or they know the current situation that they're in. Have they made the Champions League knockout rounds by finishing top in the Ukrainian Premier League or not, and like how much guaranteed and all that kind of stuff is going to be. But obviously the only negative, if it was to carry on into the summer, is that there's probably going to be more interest from other parties. So that's why I think that currently right now, just how it all seems to be working, adding up, that if it's going to end, it might not end very quickly, but hopefully it will be this month.
My final two questions for you would be: at what point do you think Arsenal will walk away, if they were to walk away? Not that I want that, because as you said, negotiations are tough. They're currently butting heads now. And where are you at with, we heard Chelsea are hijacking the deal and all of that sort of stuff. Is that just nonsense put out by the papers to kind of force the issue? Is it a thing where they'll wait to see if Arsenal, get it done? Where are you at with that?
Well, just looking at the kind of window that Chelsea already having, where they're like already going to be spending 127 million euros or whatever on Enzo Fernandez, and they're bringing in that guy from Monaco for like 38 million. Like in general, I don't think they're going to be able to afford it. Especially, I just think that maybe it's just like, oh wow, they're interested, but that they're not actually going to put in any money or bids in for him. And personally, I don't think that the Chelsea option is probably as good from a Mudryk perspective. I think he sees that it's a lot more unstable there.
Yeah,
because there's every chance that Graham Potter might not be there next month.
And none of their attacking players are really thriving like ours, really.
It's so volatile there. They don't really know what's going on. The whole team, I guess, is like not very personable. Like no one really that likable in the side and all that. So like compared to Arsenal, it seems a bit messy.
It's a bit more aligned to what he is about.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that was probably something that should be taken seriously, especially this month. Maybe in the summer it might be a different story if it doesn't work out. But right now, I think we'll see. We'll see where Arsenal go. But like I was talking to someone the other day, and it was essentially, will Arsenal go beyond the Pepe fee that they paid? Like what was it, 72 million or something?
72 million.
And will they? I guess it's just like they've already been bitten on the arse before when they've overpaid for someone.
Quite shy,
I was actually looking at those Pepe stats that he actually has got. He's actually got quite an absolutely phenomenal record for the kind of flop that everyone said he was, like almost a goal in every two games. It just like never worked out for him. But and I know, obviously a load of those goals were in the Carling Cup and Carabao Cup and in the Europa League and all that lot. But still, I mean, I could see Arsenal probably pushing it in, because if they've got actual faith in the fact that he can become this player, then they'll go for it. If they have got their concerns, then probably they will walk away. But for the time being, I think it's progressing. I just think that, especially for Arsenal fans, I think there just needs to be a slight, tone down on the expectations in terms of how quick it's going to take. I think it's going to drag on a bit, personally. And it could take until the end of the window. I know I've seen things today like Arsenal want to get it sealed by like the Spurs game, so 14th of Jan or something, or by the Liverpool game or something like that. But we will see how that goes. But I'm currently right now, just from what I'm hearing that negotiations are ongoing, but whether they're going to be successful or not is a completely, I'm none the wiser. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, okay, with everything considered what we've spoken about, my final question, if you had to give it an out of 10, how confident are you that Modric is an Arsenal player wearing this shirt come at some point in January / let's just say the beginning of February?
Because I've got a bit of doubt, like I mentioned, I could see it somewhere going, I'll go 7.5 out of 10.
I mean, I'll
right
tell you
now.
that. I'll tell you that. That was higher than I thought. I thought he was gonna say, man. I thought he was gonna say a 6, so I'll take 7.5. That's cool, man. Yeah, but Andrew, this has been a fantastic chat. Honestly, from the moment I DM'd you to try to get this, I have to appreciate the willingness to do it, you know, the consistency you've moved at, and obviously your ultimate knowledge and, you know, enriching my channel and the content. So I want to thank you for that. Let people know where they can find you. All your information will be in the YouTube description by the time this comes out, but let people know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed chatting a bit more about Modric and even about Zinchenko. Always refreshing to chat about it. Yeah, anyone can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Zorya London, and also do a English language podcast on Ukrainian football called Ukraine plus football. That's a bit more sporadic in its releases, but hopefully we'll have a sort of a Mudryk special coming out relatively soon for Arsenal fans to give a listen to.
Make sure you follow and subscribe on all of his platforms, people. You know, make sure you do up his numbers and things. It's been a very enjoyable chat. I'm going to let Andrew and everybody get out of it. Andrew, thanks again for that, man. And hopefully by the time I next DM you, we've signed Modric, my guy, man. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Have a good one, man. Thank you.
Peace.